Discover the power of truth, power and glory, the podcast. Produced by VICTOIRE. VICTOIRE gives a special thanks to the EWF, Empire Wrestling Federation, and Mr. Jesse Hernandez, as well as SoCal Wrestling TV. Find the app on Roku. Okay, welcome everybody to the premiere episode of Power and Glory. You want to discover the power of truth? Then you've come to the right place. I am joined, my co-host for this show is a WWE, WCW legend. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Paul Roma. Paul, welcome to our first episode.
Hey, listen, this is going to be a great venture. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great venture indeed. We're going to get to pull the curtain over to reveal some more about pro wrestling in a very truthful manner, and jumping right in, Paul. Everybody out there, I was taken aback. I'm sure, Paul, you were taken aback too. Last week, the Hannibal TV. He's quite the mover and the shaker in the world of podcasting. He's been out there for many, many years. But last week, he had on a guest, a friend of yours and becoming a friend of mine, Marty Jannetty. And in that particular interview, the Hannibal said some things about you, Paul, that I took offense to. He seemed to lead Marty along a path. First of all, I think he led him through the sewer again when Marty's trying to get his life back on track. But he said some things about you that were disheartening. And I feel it appropriate that we should address that, Paul. So let's hear what's on your mind, Paul.
Well, I heard a little bit. Actually, I didn't listen to the entire show. Not a big fan of, what goes on with the Hannibal show. But somebody sent it to me, that little insert, that clip. And I listened to it, kind of chuckled about Marty going along with the program. But, what it boils down to is this. I never met Hannibal. Hannibal doesn't know me other than he's seen me on TV wrestling. Yeah. So he doesn't know me personally. Right. And for somebody to, and I won't even say what he said, but make the comments that he did, those words. Yeah. I was taken back by it because the first thing on my mind was, wow, this guy doesn't even know who I am. Right. There's in wrestling, there were a handful, just a little bit over a handful of people that knew me. So first and foremost, you had Mario Mancini, who knows me probably better than anybody. Yeah. You had Hercules, my partner, who was, right there alongside of Mario. Yeah, Mr. Fuji, Uncle Harry, right? So there's another person. You had Harley Race, another guy. And if I missed one person, I apologize. But at the end of the day, these 5-6 guys are the guys that really knew me. Even Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, took the time. And, Ray said to me one day, and I said to him, I said, listen, if these guys don't have the time to find out who and what I am as a person, I don't have time for them. Right. And so they took a lot of not knowing who and what I was all about, and saying, well, this guy is this, or this guy is that, like Hannibal was doing. Yeah. He doesn't know me. Yeah. Why don't you go, since you can't go to these gentlemen, because they're not here anymore, other than Mario Mancini, why don't you go to the fans? Right. Why don't you ask the fans, how does Paul Roma treat you when you go and ask for an autograph? When you ask Paul Roma a question, for somebody to just say he's this and that and the other thing, and again, people say, well, you traveled with Marty, you knew Marty. Yeah, I did travel with Marty. And did I expect Marty to say that? So Marty said one thing about me, then he goes, but I love you, Paul. As to say, I'm kind of being coerced into doing this. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't hold anything against him. I see him, I give him a big hug.
Yeah. Yeah, but definitely coerce is exactly the right words that I think. I thought the same thing, because at first Marty seems very, he's a respectful guy. So, this guy's hosting him on his show, but he, like I said before, I'll take the heat on this one. He's The Hannibal guy, he's the guy who leads him down that cesspool. He's the guy that drags him there. And there's nothing productive about that whatsoever. You know, for anybody out there watching, like I said, Paul and I have developed quite the friendship moving forward. I know the color of this man. You know, he's a devout patriot. You know, he's a man of faith. He loves children, helping, you know, giving back. So I don't see anything of what the Hannibal said reflecting or coming out of you, Paul. And also, again, you know, you were very serious about your career at that time. You were very intense. You were into your bodybuilding, everything else. You were regimented. And I think some of the guys, well, again, someone like Hannibal, who doesn't seem to be well organized at all, you know, could be jealous of that in some ways. I'll be the instigator there, you know?
Well, you know, people always want to take good people down,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you look at the grand scheme of things. So me being a person, as you stated, who was representing children,
Mm-hmm.
you know, St. Jude's Foundation
Yeah.
to you know, to say, I had to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, I had to stay on that clean road. You
Mm-hmm.
know, not getting arrested, not being accused, accusations. I didn't need all that. Drugs, drinking,
Right.
that wasn't me.
Right.
And guys, you know, they even though they tried to, you know, draw you into that, I wouldn't go that route.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I was what Hannibal, you know, set me up to be.
Right.
That name, that word, right?
Right.
You know, I want to keep this as clean as possible.
Yeah.
But again, he doesn't know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know somebody. It gives you the right to say whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when you just start barking because you're trying to get ratings or you want me to fire back at you, you know, so that you can get things going on social media, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not going to go down that path with you. You know, you were able to bring Marty down that path. You weren't bringing me. He's asked me to come on his show, you know, and I told him I'd do it for this dollar amount. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to go on there and give you good ratings.
Right. Right.
I'm not going to help your cause, which is it a great cause? No. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? At least here with Power and Glory, there's a great cause behind this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a light at the end of that tunnel. There's
Yeah.
a rainbow.
Yeah.
What's there with him?
Yeah.
The dark side?
Yeah.
Is that what's there? The dark side, right?
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't dark, nobody really wants to listen.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Paul. You know, you look around at the landscape of podcasts that do cover the topic of professional wrestling, and a lot of them, you know, make a mockery of these individuals' careers. You know, you and I have done your life story interview, and, you know, we put things in a positive light here. We will address the negative and we will address it head on, but we will contribute to the wrestling industry as a whole with Power and Glory. And going back to that, Paul, because this is the inaugural episode of Power and Glory, just again for the viewers, tell them how you came up with that name when you were performing with Hercules and the meaning behind Power and Glory.
Well, it was so Hercules was a bad guy at the time, and I was a good guy. And back in our day, good guy and bad guy were not allowed to ride together. That was taboo. But because Ray had a real Ray had a track record of always being late,
Yeah.
you know, or even miss a town. So his last big miss of a town, we were in Chicago. Well, Ray came into Chicago. The Rosemont Horizon was where we were wrestling, and he went up to the agent and he said, you know, hey, I'd like to get a draw. Back then, they give you, you know, some money so you could, you know, continue to stay on the road. You don't have to go to the bank. And so he looked down. He said, how much do you want? And he goes, Ray. He goes, Ray, you're not here. He goes, you're supposed to be in Madison Square Garden, you know, in New York. And he was wrestling Hogan, main event. Well, that never happened because by time, you know, he'd get to the plane and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what happened was Ray and I were in the town and I said, hey, listen, why don't we ride together? I got a car, just ride with me. No one's going to know. We'll keep it really quiet. And which we did. And when the office found out, they approached me on it. And I said, listen, here's how we're doing it. We get up to the building. I get out of the car. I walk in. Ray takes the car around the back. And then,
Yeah.
no harm, no foul. Nobody's any of the wiser. And I said, plus he's getting every town on time, which is great. And they love that. So they're like, okay, just make sure no one finds out. So that's what we did. And then I came up with Power and Glory. And I had said to him, this is what it's all about. So I said, we have to agree that Power and Glory is going to go to hospitals and talk to these kids in need.
Yeah.
They're sick, they're dying, cancer. And he was on board. He says, absolutely. I got like, 6 kids and, so I was like, okay, great. This is really good. I said, so I'm going to go to the office. I'm going to approach him on it. I'll pitch it to him and then we'll see what happens. So that's what I did. Pat had said to me at the time, I guess I can guess who the Glory is. And I said, yeah, I said, because he's 6'3", 275 pounds. Of course he's the Power.
Right.
And I'm going to be the high flyer.
Yeah.
And then at the end of every match, no matter who is beating the guy, I will always come in. He'll always give me the tag. I always get the pin because that's the Glory.
Yeah.
But what people didn't know, other than some that I've told, is that Power and Glory stood for strength in God. And that, someone said something to me once. I said, no, we're not God. Okay. This is what we represent. Right. Is just that. And I said to Ray, I said, there's no one that can stop us because this is just meant to be. We're going to be Power and Glory. We're going to go to these hospitals. We're going to talk to these kids. We're going to give them hope and so on. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And it really worked out well, other than the fact that we didn't have control of our wins and losses and, that part of wrestling life.
Right. But what incredible to have created such a team that was so memorable. And I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your action figure, Paul, if you can raise that up, the new Paul Roma action figure with Roma right there in the Power and Glory garb. Where can fans go to at least get a backdated order on this? Because we're sold out right now.
Well, they could go to Zombie Sailor.
Okay.
They are sold out. This was the first batch. I spoke to him. He's definitely going to run another batch. And I believe he's going to actually run a batch where we are a tag team together.
Okay. Which is going to be.
So, I got mine.
Yeah.
I got mine right.
Yeah.
I got mine right here. I'm going to get my tag team one next.
Yeah. Paul's lucky. I tell you what, it brings back so many memories. I got to get my hands on some of those too. Very reminiscent of the Hasbro figures there. But again, congratulations, Paul, on that. That is so nice to be commemorated in that way. But yeah, in terms of storytelling, coming up with the Power and Glory, coming up with such a great team, it would lead me into creativity as a whole right now. This is something that you and I talk a lot about off camera. So SummerSlam took place this past weekend. 60,000 fans. They had a pretty good lineup of matches. But going back to a SummerSlam that you were involved with, in fact, that you opened at the Philadelphia Spectrum in 1990. Let's compare and contrast a little bit, if we will. So, Paul, first of all, did you watch SummerSlam or did you see the highlights?
So I didn't watch SummerSlam because of what's not being done anymore.
Okay.
It doesn't draw my attention. I watch, I go, okay, and then you see the next match, you're like, okay. And then you see another match, like, oh, I like that spot, but the rest was blah. Right. I think the big difference today is we went out and we ad-libbed it. They are they're Hollywood now. They're scripted. Yeah. How they can do that is beyond me. I mean, God bless them that they can do it because I couldn't do it. Here, put your left in front of your right. I mean, I know it's not that crazy, but for the most part it is. Yeah. If they miss a spot, they go back and do the spot again. Yeah. And it's to me, it's just insulting. It's humiliating. But this is what they want.
It's not organic is the word I'm looking for. It reminded me, the setup looked like SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium, but because it was an outdoor stadium. But I have a tendency to agree with you. You know, it's not, nothing really catches your attention. You can try and do surprises. So they did a surprise with the women's opening match where Rey Mysterio's son, he was apparently he was with this women's champion, Rhea Ripley, I believe is her name. She lost because he helped this girl apparently that he's been having a fling with, which again, I think there are some things, and I think you might agree with me, Paul. We know the guy's married in real life. He just got married, Dominic Mysterio, to a wife, but yet he's playing that he's involved in this love triangle, but yet it's plastered all over the internet that he just got married. I mean, there are some things that you cannot suspend, right?
Right, right,
So
right,
again, and so it doesn't hold any value when you watch it. It's just like, well, we know the guy's married. This is just a joke.
right.
The beauty that happened when, I'm going to use SummerSlam 90 as a reference point, because in my mind, that was one of the most polished SummerSlams to ever be produced. You had you guys in the opening card. You had the Texas Tornado and Mr. Perfect. You had the Warrior and Rude in the cage, Hogan and Earthquake. I mean, you had just a stacked card, but every match was telling a long form story. And that's what the only one that happened this weekend was Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, and that ended abysmally for everything that it was built up to be. For Drew to win and go over CM Punk, it just seemed like a lack of creative storytelling. But going back to 1990, Paul, tell us a little bit about what went into producing it. So some of the meetings you would have had with, or what you would have been told from the office back then, how did they map out in time for a pay-per-view? Did it start months in advance, or was it, on the spur of the moment? How was it all weaved together?
Well, it was months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So they build a storyline,
Mm-hmm.
right, to lead up to a pay-per-view,
Yeah.
which is kind of what they get away from right now.
Right.
But you know, nothing is told to you
Mhm.
unless they want you to crash through a glass, window,
Yeah.
or come down out of the rafters, or something like that. Other than that, it is it was told in all the houses,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better word. So you go to an arena and you're fighting the Rockers, right? And you're in Chicago, and then the next night you go to Detroit and you're facing the Rockers. So the people want to come and see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Who's going to win, who's going to lose, is it a draw, whatever the case may be. But by the time it built up and we got to that pay-per-view, we just went out and, did we know who was going to win? Sure, we did. But everything else was ad-libbed.
Yeah.
The entire match was not practiced.
Yeah.
And that's what people thought we were doing. Oh, you guys must practice a lot. No.
Yeah.
We just flew in from, say, I don't know, California
Yeah.
to Connecticut, to New York, to wherever, Rhode Island,
Yeah.
or wherever the case may be, even though they try to keep us, in that part of the United States.
Mhm.
But we'd still do California, Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, the Dakotas.
Yeah.
So they kept us in that area, but it was 23 days a month
Mhm.
that we were on the road. So there was no time to practice.
Yeah.
And then when I had gone to, just to flip it, when comparison, when I went to WCW, one of the guys said, "Hey, Paul, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, sleeping, because, then I have to cut promos,
Yeah.
in the afternoon." And he goes, "Oh, you want to practice, go." And I'm like, "What?" He
Mhm.
goes, "Do you want to meet me to practice?" And I said, "Practice what?" He goes, "Wrestle, meet me down at the powerhouse, and well, I'm like, "No, what are you, crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing this every night.
Right.
And you want me to practice and beat my body up more?
Yeah.
Like, what should I be practicing?
Right.
Moves that I already know how to do,
Right.
you know?" And he was kind of He was a young kid,
Mhm.
you know, a newbie, so to speak, and he was kind of taken back. But I walked out there going, this he's got to be nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously he doesn't get it.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, just didn't do that. It was unheard of. Once you got out of wrestling school and you were considered a professional, you went out there and got better
Right.
by the matches, all the matches you kept, you know, working in and talking to the veterans and saying, hey, you know, did you see my match? What'd you think? You know, and so on, and getting their criticism, let them critique you.
Mm.
So you know, nowadays I guess it's different, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Very, very different. Couple of things there. The angle with the Rockers, because that was how Power and Glory formed, was it not? I think if memory serves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
that?
what happened was um Vince asked us what we wanted to be, and we both said bad guys.
Mhm.
So he threw us out in the ring against baby faces,
Mhm.
and they had music, and they cheered us when we beat up the baby faces. So he's like, okay, well, let me get better known baby faces.
Mhm.
So now he says, let me stick Slick with you, because everybody knows Slick's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he says, let me kill your music. So we go back out, we beat up two more guys, and they cheered us.
Mhm.
He says, okay, this isn't working. So he says, let me give this some thought, and then, you know, he'll get back to us, which he did.
Yeah.
So that brought up the angle where I was knocked out in the ring. The Rockers came out to help me. I blamed them because I thought they jumped me. And that's when Hercules hit the ring, and we were immediately bad guys,
Yeah. Very well done. And again, we
which
come.
was brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And then you led that in to SummerSlam. Um,
Correct.
what was the idea, just for audiences who don't know, the idea, because I think Hercules took the chain to Sean's leg, and then he was supposed
Yes.
to be out. Now, I don't remember what happened after that, but did this story continue post SummerSlam, or did they end it that night? As I can't recall.
I think we wrestled a couple matches after that.
Hmm.
But that was pretty much, you know, the finishing blow.
Yeah.
Sean had gotten hurt the night before. So for him to wrestle was going to be a difficult task.
Okay.
That's why Ray hit on the side. And when he came down, you know, to the ring, Ray took his knee out with the chain.
Right. Okay.
And then we jumped on Marty, who did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, he did. He did. It was a great match. And you also mentioned about, hitting these spots and constantly training in the ring. But we know what brought this whole industry to the dance, Paul. It was the characters. It was the larger than life characters and the psychology. You didn't have to throw a thousand and one moves, all respect to Dean Malenko, but you didn't have to do that in order to tell a good story. It was the whole package. And in terms of you, Paul, I mean, do you see the new guys coming up, right?
I do.
Obviously the percentage of what they spend in the ring doing high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot is more than they're spending on their character now. What would you say if you had the platform and you're speaking, let's say, to the entire WWE locker room? What advice would you give them to really cement them as characters?
Well, wow, that's a real. That was an easy question,
Hmm.
depending upon where you are, where they are
Hmm.
in their career right now. So it makes it, and it also it's a very difficult question, and I'm going to break it down for you as to why.
All right.
When you bring somebody in,
Mhm.
and I'll use baseball as an analogy. All right, so you bring in Aaron Judge. Do you change the way he swings? Why? Because he's been hitting
Right.
62 home runs, right?
Right.
Right. That's what he does best. Same thing with a pitcher. You don't change the way he throws because you brought him in because he's the strikeout king or whatever the case may be. He's the closer. Well, what WWE did was just this. They brought in these guys, and you brought them in for a reason, because you liked them.
Yeah.
You liked what they were bringing to the table.
Yeah.
But then what you did was you started playing God. and said, we're going to cookie cut all you guys and we're going to make you what we want you to be. So now everybody, even though they dress different, even though they may look a little different, and not many of them look that much different because who's wearing long pants now or jeans and boots, and it's not wrestling tights, and it's not that anymore. So what they did was they cookie cut everybody, and now they figure, you know what, we're so great and powerful. We're the great and powerful Oz. We can do whatever we want. Bang. We're gonna shove it down our fans' throats. We're gonna make them eat it. And they're gonna like it. Whether they think they do or not, we're telling you, you're gonna like this. And that is the problem now. So we were bigger than life because we brought our own characters. Vince brought us in because he loved our characters.
Right.
He loved what we brought to the table. He may have said to somebody, may have tweaked it a little bit, but most of the time it was a lot of the veterans that were saying, hey kid, come over here. You know what? Maybe if you did this, and then you try, you're like, oh, hey, that was great. Like Mr. Perfect said to me, he came in one time to me and he said, hey, listen, you don't mind if I tell you something, right? You're not going to hit me, are you? And I was like, no, man, So he goes, well, just be yourself. Yeah. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, just be that a-hole that, everybody thinks you are when you walk in the locker room. He goes, be that out in the ring. Yeah. So the next night, because I was told by one of the agents to act this way. And it wasn't me as a person, but I tried it. Yeah. And I walked out of the ring and he goes, now, wasn't that better? And I went, oh yeah, that was great, but it wasn't better. So when Mr. Perfect grabbed me, he goes, what are you doing? Yeah. And I said, well, this is what Jack wanted me to do. He goes, but that's not you. Yeah. He says, be that person that everybody can't stand in the locker room. Yeah. Because you carry yourself, you're that arrogant, you look so good, Yeah. So I said, okay. So the next night, he goes, I'm going to watch you now. I said, oh, watch me. Yeah. So I come back out. He goes, now, didn't that feel better? I said, it felt great. Yeah. Yeah. He goes, that was so much better. And then Jack comes over to me and goes, now, wasn't that better? And I went, yeah, Jack, I'm so glad I listened to you. But, I didn't listen to him, that second night. Yeah. But these are what these guys are doing. They're being programmed as, again, cookie cut. Yeah. And they're all the same. Yeah. Nobody is who they are. So my question would be, why did you bring them in? If they were so great to bring in, why don't you just leave them be as they are and not change them to what you want them to be? That, again, that's the analogy. I have Judge, go hit home runs. You brought in CM Punk, let him be who he is. Right? Because that's what caught your eye the first time. That's why you brought him in, or any of the other guys, that McIntyre. Yeah. That's who he is. Yeah. So let him be his own. Yeah. But that's not what I hear is going on. I hear they're, making them do what they want them to do. Meaning the office wants them to do. Yeah. So
very much so across the board. You can see it, and you can certainly hear it in the promos. The promos themselves these days are, that they seem like someone trying to act. And I think if you can see that someone's acting, no one's going to really care because they know it's an act. It's like, again, I mean, if it was me playing the storyline, I'll come back to this SummerSlam. If it was me playing that Dominic Mysterio storyline, I would cringe walking out there to know that all these people already know I'm married. I'm happily, but yet you're making me play. It seems like it's 30 years too late. And of course, without social media, you could have gotten away with it, but you can't get away with it anymore. So I think in terms of, again, you and I talk a lot about, the creative aspect of what's going on in pro wrestling. If you want to evolve it now, you're going to have to think of far more creative ways of telling stories. It can't be done the old way it was done because of the social media now. And like you said, authenticity. And now, speaking of authenticity, I'll segue into our other topic today, which is Shane McMahon. So, last week, it was revealed that Shane had a private meeting with Tony Khan. president of AEW. Paul, what are your initial thoughts on what that could be about, and what are you anticipating?
Wow. So my first thought was, oh boy, here we go.
Mhm.
My second first thought was, oh boy, here we go. And then as I started to think, I went down a couple paths. If he brings them in, is he going to implode AEW? Remember now, Vincent fired his two writers to send them to WCW.
Yep.
Only to destroy WCW, to implode them.
Yep.
So while Eric Bischoff, being as brilliant as he's not, said, wow, I'm going to steal these two writers now because Vince just fired them. What he didn't know was, and he found out real quick, but what he didn't know was that Vince never fired them.
Mhm.
Again, like wrestling, it wasn't real.
Mhm.
He sent them down there. He knew they'd get scooped up, sent them down. They wrote horrible, horrific storylines to destroy WCW a lot faster, which is what they did.
Mhm.
And now Vince is the only one, the monopoly, running. And my first thought goes right to there.
Mhm.
Is Tony Khan that much of a mark
Mhm.
where he's going to fall prey to Shane McMahon coming in and destroying, maybe not overnight, he's going to keep his guard up for a little while,
Mhm.
but as soon as he builds a little trust, then I think, that's the time to strike, without a doubt. On the flip side is, could Sean, because he wants to prove to his dad, because his dad wouldn't ever let him run WWE, does he want to prove to him that he can go and do this? Yeah,
Mhm.
but blood's always thicker than water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that Irish blood right there, I don't think there's any way. His father tells him to go and pee in the corner. I think he's going to go pee in the corner. So I think he's down there, and I think he's going to. And again, hopefully I'm wrong, because I want to see AEW
Yeah.
get so much better.
Yeah.
I don't know how good I'm sorry, Shane is, as far as storylines, or what he's capable of doing. I've heard good things,
Mhm.
that he's capable of writing storylines.
Yeah.
But again, it's buyer beware, I would think. And,
Yeah.
and I've never had an issue with Shane. I
Mhm.
always thought that he was a good kid. I mean, obviously he was a young kid when I was there.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, listen, as long as I'm here, Power and Glory always has a home here.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big lie,
Mhm.
but again, I'm not going to bash him.
Mhm.
It's just, you know, Tony, again, buyer beware.
Yeah. I tend to see
What do
the
you think?
I agree with you 100%, Paul, because you cannot trust, even to this day, people still say, Vince Russo, I think, even says so himself, oh no, I wasn't sent there, and this and that. It's too, my British will come out here. It's too bloody obvious, right? I mean, there's WWE's getting destroyed in the ratings in the late 90s. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Paul, the way he destroyed that company so fast, it was like, I remember literally watching it from, like, if you stop watching it 3 months, if you watch it in March of 99 and you look at it again in August of 99 and then January of 2000, you can't even recognize the darn company. It's so
Right.
sabotaged. Everything was, I mean, I don't even know how they even thought the set looked better. It looked cheap as heck. One darn frigging curtain of stars or whatever it was back there. So I agree. I think that Tony should be very vigilant, or at least even if he does sign him as a talent, make sure he's just a talent and has no other stock control or anything else, because you just don't know. But on the flip side of that coin, Paul, here you go. Now we got something else. Hollywood came in and basically took WWE right out of the McMahon's hands. They did it this, I mean, and now, I'm not going to get into details, but it appears that something may have gone on, because all of a sudden you've got these big conglomerate Hollywood, and we know of these guys. These guys are unscrupulous, these Hollywood people, unscrupulous, um, conniving. Um, it's all about money. They have no personal. And for many years, Paul, Hollywood disliked wrestling. They looked down upon it. They frowned upon it, right? But now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
because it's making money, they come in. And I just think, personally, for me, I think it's a travesty the way they've come in, and now a lot of the talent don't even mention the McMahons anymore. It's like they never existed. And for me, I think that's an insult. I think some of those guys, particularly John Cena. Now, I know he's a good guy in terms of doing his Make-A-Wish, and he helps kids and stuff like that. But he did an interview recently, Paul, and if someone asked him about the McMahons, and he just literally said something like, well, that's in the past. We got to move on now. I'm like, really? Your career wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for the McMahons, pal. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, but no, I was just going to say, do you think that, maybe the intentions of Hollywood were very similar? Come in and get them out, and now we run the show. And
I mean, yes, possibly, again, do you really want to be affiliated with the McMahon name, seeing as that he's got this, how do you call it?
just
Um,
an issue, just an issue.
yeah, an issue hanging over his head, a big issue. I mean, we're talking Epstein issue
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
So, maybe, and again, rumor has it that Shane wanted to run the company, or at least another company, and then whether it was TNA, or I'm not TNA, TNT, or one of the other ones, even though they're all one and the same.
Yeah.
And his father wouldn't let him,
Right.
wouldn't let him take creative control.
Mhm.
Look, obviously Vince is, a little controlling, to say the least.
Yeah.
So at that point, he had to bow out.
Yeah.
Now I heard he ran his own company. I don't know. I didn't find out what it was, but supposedly, he was doing well.
Mhm.
But this is in their blood.
Mhm. Yeah.
And going back to Cena, yes, you're right. Vince made you,
Mhm.
right? And he got you to where you were. Otherwise, you're just some guy, some built guy in jean shorts,
Right.
for the most part. I never thought he could wrestle,
Mhm.
but because of the way WWE marketed him, it shot him to the top. Well, great and good for you. That's wonderful. But it shows you how fast people dismiss other people once they get what they want.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from what he does for kids.
Right.
Nothing at all.
Right.
I'm just talking about him personally.
Yeah.
His character.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
It just shows you. Once he gets what he wants, he moves on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, he's not, he doesn't stand in my good graces when it comes to would I trust him? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to him doing what he does as far as Make-A-Wish,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, is that one and the same? Is it because he loves that notoriety?
Mm-hmm.
Is he doing it out of the kindness of his heart?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he doing it because he digs the notoriety? He has to be on top,
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing. How many people, if right now, when this show goes out there, and I'll put this to everybody out there right now. Once you've seen the show, I don't care if a year goes by, you can still fire back at us and say this. How many people can say that I or they heard, other than on a podcast, about me speaking for children of St. Jude?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't publicize it. You know what I told our magazine, WWF at the time magazine? They said, well, we want to put you in the back of the magazine so you could go out there and do all this charity work. And I said, listen to me. You do not put me back there.
Mm-hmm.
I will do charity work for the ones that I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones I believe in is St. Jude.
Mhm.
The other one I believe in, and I've never done anything for them, is Shriners.
Okay.
I think they're another really good organization. Now obviously you have, for our fallen, Tunnels of Towers, and again,
Mhm.
but that is, another can of worms. So they have their own thing going on. They reach out and they grab these different celebrities, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
But I never boasted about it as far as I didn't want the notoriety. I
Mhm.
wanted to go backstage, do it in a very quiet, personal way, and get my self satisfaction from it
Mhm.
and the blessings from, God up above.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I did it. So, am I looking down and saying, he's doing it because he's digging the publicity?
Mhm.
Maybe it's on his head, it's
Yeah.
on his soul, not on mine.
Yeah.
But again, I throw it out there to anybody that wants to come back and say, "Oh no, you plastered it all over here and there." No, I didn't.
No.
I
No.
kept it on the down low.
Mhm.
That was my own personal gain right there.
But you did it based on quality, biblical morals and values. Let your good deeds be done in secret because your Father in heaven knows them. You're not the only reward you're going to get is here on earth if you start publicizing it. That's it. It's written in black and white. And like I said, we may push some buttons, Paul and I. You and I may push some buttons here, but
Right.
that's what power and glory is all about. We're about hitting hard with the truth. We're not going to pull any punches. We're going to commend people for the good things they're doing. We will talk about the negative. So yeah, I agree
Right.
with you, Paul. I mean, he may be doing it out of the kindness of his heart, but you've also got to look at the fact he's been on a reality show. He's been in movies. He's
And
controlled by
he's not a very good actor.
no. I mean, I think we can both agree on that. I think and also what he did at the Academy Awards, which again, coming
Oh,
from with conservative values, right, Paul? I am conservative values. I believe in the Lord, and in Christ in the Bible. So for me, when I see someone come out and do that and stand naked on a stage, almost 50-year-old man standing naked on a stage, I'm just, again, what's the motivation behind this? What are you doing this for? And this is just, to me, it stripped away any sense of power as a man. There you go, every pun intended. Any power as a man that he could have had, he turned into someone that just, oh, jump. Yeah, how hard do you want me to jump? Run on
right.
stage naked. It was pathetic, actually, Paul.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, yeah. And I said, you know what? This is what he'll do, anything that Hollywood tells him to do.
right. Yeah.
He's gonna, oh, I'll get another movie if I do this. If I throw everything I stand for out the window,
Yeah.
my dignity,
Right.
right? I mean, have some pride,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, nothing. I was blown away,
Yeah.
not surprised.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think there's a difference there.
Hmm.
It didn't surprise me. Like, oh yeah, no, no, no. You can expect him to do something like that,
Yeah.
but again, I mean, wow.
Yeah. We've heard so many of them, Paul, come out, especially in the past few years with the inception of all the podcasts now. One actor, who was it? Was it not Chris Rock? There was another guy. I forget who he was, but I remember he came out on the Oprah Winfrey show and they were telling him to, yeah, they wanted him to dress up in a dress for this role. They said, "Oh, it'd be funny." He said, "Well, I don't see the motivation in the script. There's no point in me in dressing up." Yeah, yeah, the producer and director think it'll be funny. And he was an African American guy, and he was like, "No, I'm not dressing up in a skirt. I'm a straight man, and I'm not going to dress up in a skirt when there's no need for
Right,
it, just so you can, get your jollies on with your, your twisted mind upset back there." So yeah, Hollywood, does, and that's my biggest concern for WWE is once it's much like with our faith, Paul. Once you give the enemy an inch, he'll take a mile. All you got to do is let it in your head, and that's it. And so once you get Hollywood come in and they start calling the shots for wrestling and they start telling you what to do, all of their pollution just seeps into that entire company, and before you know it, it'll be unrecognizable. In January, Paul, they're debuting on Netflix, and apparently they're going to be R-rated come January.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, there's no self-respect.
No.
It's just a question of how much will it cost
Yeah.
to get rid of that respect that you have for yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The starting salaries now, Paul, I heard this statistic the other day, even starting in WWE now is 350,000 a year, even if you're at the bottom of the card.
Okay. I
Three
heard 80.
80?
I
Okay.
heard 80.
I heard
Yeah.
350.
For
Yeah.
someone that's just starting,
Okay.
like you're going through their, um, just coming in,
Just coming in.
getting through their camp. Yeah, I heard 80.
Yeah.
But again, is it going to be you or is it going to be what they want you to be?
Right.
And if Hollywood jumps on board, forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. So essentially, our last hope, Paul, for everyone in the wrestling industry is AEW, NWA, and TNA. Well, I don't know about TNA because they seem to be affiliated with WWE now. A lot of their talent are appearing on WWE. So
Yeah, who knows who owns what now,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, because Vince broke WWE down to like so many different organizations, right? So who knows who's doing what anymore? I don't know.
it's a
I
very
really don't. Somebody needs to back. Well, so Tony Khan was could be the savior.
mhm,
If anybody can be the savior,
mhm.
he still has time.
Yeah.
If he gets the right guys that can build storylines,
Mhm,
build angles, and get that real talent.
mhm.
You know, don't be the Oakland A's like when there was Moneyball. Remember the movie Moneyball?
Yep, yep.
Right? Okay. He took, these low paid guys and he wanted to prove that, you know what? You don't need to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars. We
Mhm.
can do this. We
Yeah.
just, need to get the guys that are going to get together and do it right. Tony Khan needs those guys.
Mhm,
He needs to put those heads together that are going to do it right
mhm.
and save professional wrestling.
Yeah,
Put wrestling back the way it used to be,
yeah.
right? So nowadays we have the norm
Mhm.
and then we have woke.
Right.
We have he, she, it, they, thy, the, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to him and her,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
I walk into a store or wherever I walk into, and this actually happened. I
Mhm.
went into a grocery store and I'm very comfortable and very used to respecting and saying, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Right. That's just one of the things that I do.
Mhm,
And I had said that to a young person.
mhm.
And notice I use the term person.
Yeah.
And I walked away and my wife said to me, what'd you say?
Mhm,
And I said, thank you, sir.
mhm.
Well, I think that's a girl.
Hmm.
I said, well, hell, I can't tell.
Right.
I said, it's not my fault I can't tell.
Yeah.
Back in my day, you can tell.
Yeah.
Now I have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean the person any disrespect, but again, at the end of the day, I
Mhm.
mean, I should be able to tell what you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, and I think, to your point, Paul, if I see you clearly, evidently to me, in living daylight color, you are a man. Okay. So
As you.
if you suddenly said to me, oh, I'm so offended that you called me a man, I'm going to say, well, I don't understand because I'm looking at a man before me right now.
Correct.
I don't know what's going on in your head because I don't have an ability to see through into the human mind. So,
Right.
so no one, and I agree with you. And again, let's just say, because we are we want to be fair here on this show. We understand if you tell us something, then we'll respect that. Okay. Because, once you tell, it's like a parent that tells a kid off, stop doing that. Okay. If you're a good kid, you respect that. Okay. I'm not going to do that anymore. So, but when you get criticized and jumped on, just based on your first impression, what you're seeing with your eyes, you can't be held accountable for that. That is
Right.
not, it doesn't make sense to do that. And I think, yeah, we are, we have cascaded into a blurry place in history where there used to be black and white, which is literally what there is. I mean, we can go back even to biblical scripture. It's black and white. The word is black and white. But now you've added gray, purple, green, red. You've added all these colors in between. And again, we can't see into each other's mind to know what you're thinking, who you want to be called, whatever, and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think even with wrestling, again, they're blurring that kind of ideology is broken in to certain companies, and it's blurred the lines and skewed everything so much that it's hard to figure out the direction in which they're going. Whereas back in, again, I'll go back to SummerSlam '90, clear as day. You understood who the good guys and who the bad guys were. You rooted for the good guys. We hadn't gone too crazy on the characters. It was like, Vince's scientific experiment had just begun, so he hadn't become the mad scientist yet. But it was
Right.
that was the, if you want to talk about, even go to bodybuilding, right? You've got to find that perfect, like Lee Haney used to say, don't annihilate the muscle, just stimulate it. It's like a match, just strike it and let it burn. Don't go overboard. The Mike Menser approach, all of this. So you've got to find that point in wrestling. Tony Khan has to find that happy medium now, where he's not gone too far off the deep end, but he gets it back to where it was, because again, arguably, that's what brought us to the dance today. It was your time that made it an international success. No other time, that time.
If if he puts his put his ego aside,
Mhm.
if there's a little pride in there, put that aside,
Yeah.
he's still going to lay claim to being a genius. The problem is you need to get smarter men than you around you. If you could turn this around, your ratings will go through the ceiling. You will be what WWF was back in my day in the 90s and up to like 95. I mean, 7 days a week on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
All anybody ever spoke about was that.
Yeah.
And again, everybody and their mother wanted to come work for you
Mhm.
because you're the place to be.
Yeah.
It's like having playing football,
Mhm.
right? And you have the greatest team in the world, which at one point were, and some people argue this, were the Yankees.
Mhm.
Murderers Row. Yeah, they were it.
Yeah.
It was a slugfest.
Yeah.
And that's the key. That's the key that I don't think he's really taken into account.
Mhm.
You could bring people in and talk to them.
Mhm.
Take the guys that you feel are the best fit for your company,
Mhm.
and then just sit back.
Yeah.
Just sit back. Let them run your company. I mean, isn't that what great owners do at the end of the day? They oversee it.
Right.
They want to make sure the numbers are going up, which is what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, hey, dad, I need a couple $100 million more,
Mhm.
how about you make a couple $100 million for yourself? Your company makes it for itself.
Mhm.
Why don't you try that instead of just buying everybody up,
Mhm.
using maybe a quarter of what you bought up? All this money's out there. They're not even working for their dollars.
Mhm.
Just why don't you just throw it to some random people out on the streets and make them happy? Because that's really what you're doing. You don't see half the people that he has on his roster.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
if you do see them, what are they doing that impresses you? Nothing.
Yeah. Well, there's not enough space, Paul. I mean,
No.
even with two flagship shows, you've got Dynamite and Collision. Well, they have Rampage as well, but there's not. You'd have to divide the roster up equally over 3 or 4 shows a week. But then how are you going to factor in your pay-per-view? Because you could put a match in from each show. It's got to be more streamlined and tailored, like you said. back in the 90s, it was easy to follow because there was a tag team storyline, the Intercontinental storyline, the world title storyline. How many belts are there today? I mean, I've lost count. I don't even know some of these
I
these
think there's
belts.
like 15 in the
Yeah,
in AEW,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They got two different organizations they're running, aren't they? They're running
They're,
ROH.
yep, they're running ROH too. Yep.
I mean, seriously, how can you keep up? The whole point, it, look, you win the pennant, you win the World Series. Done. There's one World Series. That's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's one WrestleMania.
Hmm.
That's all there is.
Yeah.
And everything leads up to that one big show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have 24 belts going into that one show, 24 matches. Now they're getting into they wrestle for 2 days, which I think is just nuts.
Hmm.
Absolutely nuts. Because the normal person, you got to think about it. Or I shouldn't say normal. The average person, can he really afford 2 days?
No, no. Mm-mm.
I mean, hotel for 2 days.
Yeah.
They know it's coming in. They're jacking up hotel prices.
Mhm.
Everything's high enough now. They're jacking them up even higher. Rental cars are jacked higher. The ticket sales are higher.
Yeah.
Eh, I mean, is that what you really want to do? Just rip everybody off?
Yeah, you've
I
got
don't know. I don't think it's right.
no, you got to be cognizant for your audience too. Merchandise back in the 90s, I remember vividly. So even in the UK, the Hasbro action figures were £3 and 50 pence back in 1992. So in today's money, $7. Do you know how much an
Right.
action figure is today? The ones they sell like $30 I saw in Walmart. $30. Uh,
Right.
you know, this economy, how on earth can a parent, again, do yourself justice, lower the price. They'll be able to buy a bigger variety of merchandise. Well, they don't have the magazine anymore. I think that's a travesty. I think that was a great asset that WCW and WWE had. But you can't expect a parent and then to go and buy the ticket at $100 a pop. That's $400 for two kids,
Right.
two adults. You tell
Right.
me who in the average person in this society is going to be able to afford that on a regular basis. Not many.
Listen, my daughter's a Boston Bruins fan. I go to the Boston Bruin games. 3 tickets is $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just 3 tickets. You're done in 3 hours. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy, and I feel for these people. I really do. I think you're right. Lower the cost. Instead of buying one, they're gonna hedge that extra money for that second figure. Hey, mom, how can I wrestle against two guys if I only have one figure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
they've gotten away from using this is
Yeah.
what they've gotten away from.
Yeah.
It's become, to me, it's just greed.
Yeah.
It's just, horrible. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Again, and then you go and see at best,
Mhm.
at best, a mediocre show,
Mhm.
right? Mediocre at best.
Yeah.
Not a great show. Not 6, 7 matches, and everyone is trying to outdo the next one.
Right.
This is just 6, 7 matches, or how now it goes even longer because they have 30 minutes. A guy comes out and talks,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then they have a 5, 6 minute match or 10 minute match, and then somebody else comes out and talks, and then they have a match, and then it's so bad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just horrible. I mean, why are you eating up all that airtime cutting interviews
Mhm.
when the people want to see wrestling? I paid my $100 to come see wrestling matches,
Mhm.
not somebody get on the microphone
Yeah.
and kill 20 minutes.
Yeah, they are long. The promos are very well, the interviews are very long what they do in the ring. But not only that, Paul, is back in the day, you felt like when they did the pay-per-views, it was only 4 times a year for WWF. It was Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. And but when you watch that show, you could tell that the production values, they put that extra special effort into that night. It wasn't superstars, it wasn't all American or primetime. there was an effort that went into it. And there were matches there that you did not see every other week on TV. And that's the problem. Like you're saying now, I could watch a WWE pay-per-view like SummerSlam. The only difference between it and what's going to happen tonight on Monday Night Raw is it was in a stadium and the sign above the entrance said SummerSlam. That's it. Other than that, there's nothing that differentiates it. There's nothing, no surprise storyline. Similar with the other companies now. The entrance looks the same as the TV show. Nothing is special. They don't do any special. Before, Mean Gene would dress up with his tux and they'd have the backstage. It was like an event. Now they just wear the same. They interview in a friggin' shirt and a pair of jeans. It's like, where's the grandeur of the whole? It's like, it's not like the Oscars. It's just like a TV show with a higher price tag on it.
Yeah, and if you watch it on TV, they have all the what is it, special effects.
Mm-hmm.
So you look and go, wow, these people are seeing, look at those things hanging down. No, they're not hanging down. Mm-hmm. They're just special effects for you watching it on pay-per-view. That's all it is.
Yep.
So like you said, it's just a match.
Yep. Just a match.
There's nothing spectacular about it. There's a guy in a t-shirt with a microphone interviewing somebody.
Yeah.
That's it. Backstage, it's not even set up.
Right.
Like you said.
Right.
There's a chair over there. There's a wall. There's a light switch. I mean,
yeah.
Nothing.
I don't know where they got away from that, Paul. We could challenge any viewer now. Go and watch WrestleMania 6. Go and watch SummerSlam 90. Watch when they segue out of the match and they go backstage with Mean Gene. That beautiful set that you guys used to talk in front of. It said SummerSlam, and they had and it was a closed set. Because even the sound was, now when they go backstage, you can still hear the audience. You can still hear the arena. It's like you said, there's no effort made.
Yeah, or you see somebody passing by in the hallway.
Yeah.
They don't even cut them out.
No.
They don't even bother.
And
again, to me, this is what Vince said a long, long time ago when I first started. And then I heard it from some of the agents. And I was taken back by it. And I say this to my students now, and I tell them, listen, I don't mean anybody whose family comes here to watch our shows. I don't mean them any disrespect. But as it was told to me, wrestling fans are the dumbest fans in the world. And when it was first said to me, I was taken back. I was like, well, that's not right. That's kind of disrespectful. Say something like that. These are people. They're not stupid. You know what I mean? When I was in Madison Square Garden, I saw you would go to a Broadway show. It was told to me, you're going to see people coming in there with tuxedos and evening gowns and because this is their Broadway show for the evening. This is their entertainment. And I looked out, and sure enough, first row, wow, there they are, all suits and ties and the whole shebang. And I never let that, overwhelm me. I try to put it on the back burner in the back of my brain. I never wanted to think that was true about, people that are watching, fans, that they're stupid. You know what I mean? When you look at the grand scheme of things, we beat each other up for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be. And we walk out of the ring and we have no broken bones. We're not bleeding, and people bought into it. But I still couldn't get past them saying that the fans are the dumbest people. Wrestling fans are the dumbest fans in the world. I just never wanted to believe that. And to me, I wanted to lash back out at these agents when they said that to me, but I knew I'd get in a lot of trouble. So I zipped up my mouth and kept it shut. But that is a way that I tell my students, listen, here's the deal. They are going to watch you. And because we tell a story in the ring, and for the things that you do, they're so caught up in it. This is a Broadway play. You know that they can't fly on stage. Right. They're wired, but for that moment, you forget about the wires.
Yeah.
and you watch them fly across the stage or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? You know, The Wiz, you know, you go and watch it, Wicked, you
Yeah.
watch, you think it's great. And you forget about life for a while and what's real and what isn't real. And that's what these people are doing.
Yeah.
You know, they're watching a Broadway show, and if you're that good, you get them so into it that they're cheering for you and booing for him, and they're going into frenzies. And some people, you know, even at one of our last shows, we had little kids that were swearing. And I'm saying to myself, am I hearing this right? Where
Yeah.
are their parents? One of my wrestlers walked over and goes, "Hey, where are your parents at?" And I said, "Did you really say that?" He goes, "Yeah." Paul, I couldn't believe they were swearing at me. These are little kids. They were 10, 11 years old, you know, dropping F-bombs on me. So, you know, it's so crazy. But again, because it's such an art,
Mhm.
you can get people in a frenzy
Yeah.
over and believing what you're selling them,
Mhm.
but they're not doing what we've been talking about. They're not doing that anymore,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, and you know, they need somebody like you
Mhm.
to get out there. You know, Tony, if you could sit down and talk to Tony, even if he didn't pick you, maybe you could at least point him in the right direction and say, this is where you need to be.
Yeah.
Your stock's going to go up
Yeah.
exponentially without a doubt.
Yeah.
Your ratings are going to skyrocket. You know, just, man, you don't have to run 2 days of mania.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, how much greed is there?
Yeah.
Seriously, at the end of the day, to
Yeah.
make it to WrestleMania was to be on that card of say 7 or 8 was an honor.
Yeah.
Now you have it for 2 days. You have what, 12, 16? Who knows how many matches you have?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole card is on there. What's the glory of making it to WrestleMania if the entire roster makes it?
Yeah. Well, the entire roster is always their WrestleMania happens on a Monday night, happens on a Friday night. There's no difference anymore. Like you said, nothing is special. Nothing seems any dissimilar. You know, it's all the same thing. And I think maybe something of what you said there when the agents kept repeating that over the years, they're dumb, they're dumb, they're dumb, that eventually seeped in and carried on to other generations of workers. And that's truly, yeah, I'm not saying I don't know what they believe, but maybe that holds some credence to why you see the product the way it is today. And again, we want to say, because we want to be fair on both sides, you know, the product is still in business. It is still making a lot of money. So obviously they're doing something right somewhere. But I think there is a point when you can abuse those who follow what you're doing. You can spoon feed them anything at some point because they're there. And I think that needs to be addressed overall in pro wrestling. They need to get back to what brought them to the dance and consider the fans a little bit more, give them more worth than what they're being thought of now. At least I think you touched on a point that makes a lot of sense, Paul. Yeah.
Well, you know, look at it this way. When they told me I was in the Mania, I was blown away.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, my first WrestleMania, win, lose, or draw, who cares? My God, I made it. You thought that highly of me to put me in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So WrestleMania is like making the Olympics. Not everybody makes it.
Right.
You know, not everybody has to get a ribbon to
Mhm.
make them feel good. You know, you run angles because those are the angles you're taking into SummerSlam, that you're taking into WrestleMania.
Mhm.
That's why you're in angles, but not everybody's in an angle. You
Right.
could still not be in an angle and wrestle in a Mania or a SummerSlam or, you know, SmackDown or whatever the case may be, whatever your show is, you could still be in that and still get kudos for your work, but not when you run a Mania for 2 days and everybody on your roster is in either the first day or the second day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, they may think it does, but it doesn't work.
It,
You
it,
know, that's what made us so special back then,
mhm.
to make it. You
Yeah.
know, you made the Olympics. Win, lose, or draw doesn't matter. You're
Right.
in the Olympics.
Right.
What an honor.
Yeah.
Is it an honor anymore to be in WrestleMania? I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, the more I sit here and think about it, it doesn't sound like much of it because you said, everyone's there. They're there every week. You're stacking even if they're in an angle or they're not in an angle, they're just throwing all spaghetti at the wall, it sounds like. And also in terms of what establishes a WrestleMania to be something of value is how long you talk about it thereafter. So if you look at the WrestleManias, like this WrestleMania this year, yeah, it was huge. The Rock came back and all this, but will people still be talking about it in 30 years from now? But yet they're still talking about the first 7 or 8 WrestleManias because they were, I'd say even WrestleMania 9, Caesar's Palace, that was still a good one. After that, that's when it started to chop and change, and the production values went down, in my opinion. But those first 7 to 9, I think you were at number 7. I think you're at WrestleMania 7. And
They're iconic.
yeah, iconic. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't.
My students will talk about then, and they'll mention, something about a show that went on, but it's nothing like, like right now, we can talk about every match, and you could take any WrestleMania you want. Hogan against Andre, or Hogan and Warrior. I mean, again, it sticks in everybody's minds.
Yeah.
But these are just, and I think you said it, or at least touched on it. This is just another show.
Yeah, just another show.
That's all it is.
It's
all
not.
it is.
It's not that. Well, Paul, I think that's a good place to leave episode 1 of Power and Glory, the power of the truth. Paul, we will be back the beginning of next month. We're going to do this once a month to begin with, and then as we pick up steam, we will pursue perhaps doing 2 shows a month or what have you. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this episode. Thank you, Paul, for being my partner in justice here, I guess.
Listen, I thank you very much. Fans, we thank you. We know you're going to love this show, and we're going to be back.
Thank you for joining us on this, the premiere episode of Power and Glory, the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and share these videos. It helps us spread them much, much further. Until next time, victor what you must victor in your life. This has been a Victoire production.